The spiritual root system. God created you and me as emotional and spiritual creatures, created to live fully in relationship with ourselves, with others, and with God. We are image bearers of God, actually stamped in our hearts with a hunger to live fully. However, we cannot satisfy this hunger unless we are emotionally and spiritually nourished by relationships. When you and I live out of our heart-stamped characteristics, we discover our needs for relationship. Without a doubt, we are relational beings. Even in utero, relationship occurs. There is a response from the child to the mother's voice to the father's voice. There is a response to music. The child in the womb recoils from yelling voices. When the child is born into life, the baby is immediately start to respond to how he or she was made, to a knowledge that cannot be verbally or cognitively articulated. It can only be lived from the heart. The beginning of the journey. Long before you ever developed a cognitive or verbal capacity, you responded to life with other knowledge, your feelings. As a baby, your feelings move you into living fully in relationship. As soon as you left the womb, you reached out with the grasping reflex for the comfort and closeness of a caregiver. You cry out with heart for your needs to be addressed. You nurse, attempting to bring life and relationship into yourself. You were, of course, reacting biologically. However, you were also responding emotionally and spiritually. This initial relational movement began your journey as the only creature that is capable of transcending its biology. Astoundingly, the heart's capacity for emotion expression and spiritual relationship can be greater than our own biological instincts. I remember being in the delivery room when each of my two sons was born. At that moment, I made 1,000 passionate promises about what I would do, how I would protect him, how I would take care of him, how no harm could come to him, how I will always be there. I will never be harmed. You will never be harmed. Your heart will never be broken. No matter what happened, you'll be safe. The instant I made those promises, they were already broken because they were impossible to keep. Nevertheless, all this love, all this hope, all this tremendous recognition of my son's worth, I offer freely out of my heart without expecting anything in return. I offer this love to a creature who, by the worst standards of productivity and performance, had little value. I was promising all these things to a blue-foot, banana-headed alien who could do anything, give nothing, and offer nothing except his feelings and needs. And yet, I knew in my heart that he possessed incredible, inescapable, and undeniable worth. We all carry the capacity to recognize value in babies who can do anything, and we all carry the same capacity to remember that value in ourselves. We can't stop it within us. Our hearts are made like that, regardless of the culture, the abuse, or the religion that has impacted us. However, we can deny or forget our own worth. So why do we love newborns so unashamedly? What actually happens is that as we look at infants, our hearts identify their inherent worth and offer our own long-forgotten worth. We value the experience of the heart because it's truth. In this open-hearted movement, we recognize this incredible value of this very useless little creature. A newborn can eat, cry, sleep, feel, need, long, desire, and hope. That's all she can do. She's an emotional and spiritual creature who is made to live fully in relationship. Primary to existence, this child needs emotional and spiritual food. If provided that nourishment, she will maintain a sense of worth and expand self-love into love beyond herself. I can provide my children with all the great external riches, material, academic, experiential. Yet if they aren't rich emotionally and spiritually, I will have children who do not see themselves for who they are made to be. They will lack an understanding about why they were born to live fully and how they were created in the image of God. If we are taught to deny or forget our emotional and spiritual makeup, we travel farther and farther and farther away from the truth of the maternity word and from our own sense of worth. We end up experiencing lives of resignation. We try to make our hearts believe and accept a false reality of not hoping for much. We subordinate ourselves to the lie that our lives don't have great worth except through performance or merit. We do things because we ought to do instead of awakening to the desire within our hearts that hunger for truth and hunger to do things because we passionately desire to do them. We defend against knowing ourselves and letting others know us. Making ourselves alone, we end up living lives of lies, defending against how we really feel, and surviving in desperation. We wind up so far from that maternity word that we can't even recognize how we are truly made. We live far below the heights of which we were made. But if you risk acknowledging and understanding the substance of your heart, you begin to see your life change and grow and become full. You no longer live in resignation. You find acceptance. You no longer practice hopelessness. You live in hope. You no longer live in demand. You live in expectation. You no longer live in lust. You live in passion. You no longer manage. You have faith in mystery. You are no longer helpless. You recognize your powerlessness. You are no longer defensive. You establish a healthy identity. You no longer live in worry. You live in faith. You no longer live in judgment. You live in discernment. You no longer live in pride. You live in compassion. You no longer justify yourself. You seek forgiveness. You no longer live in penance. You hunger to change. You no longer survive. You have full life. In the journey of life, there are two roads. One road, well traveled as it is, keep us in the existence of survival, never fully knowing ourselves, never fully knowing others, and never fully finding the abundant life for which we were searching anyway. We spend our existence toiling to make life happen, and all it gets is a grave, a marker, and date. The other leads to full life, a road along the heights that is rough going, yet joyous and full. This is the way of the heart. On the road, our hearts become clarified, freed, and made new. Once we decide to leave the road of survival and travel on the path of full life, we need to journey back to our hearts and begin again. We need to acknowledge that the very nature of life proves that we need to be reborn so the survivor self can die and the true self can arise. The structure of the heart. He will be a tree planted by the water and thus sends out its root by the stream. It does not fear when he's come. Its leaves are always green and has no worry in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. Picture your hearts and its growth as a system of spiritual and emotional roots that need spiritual and emotional nourishment. Out of substance and growth of the root system, you are made aware of and able to pursue abundant living. This root system is so powerful that, like the old tree on Main Street, it doesn't matter how many sidewoods are put down. Sooner or later, the roots are going to reach up and snap the sideward in two. This is how your heart is made. Either you deal with your heart or attempt to stop your heart's voice will create such conflict that it will break your life into pieces. However, if you deal with your heart, it's guaranteed that when the tough times come, you will be okay. The diagram on the following page represents lived fully out of a mature heart. The tree planted by the water grows full, rich, and productive with the capacity to address and genuinely give to other out of abundance. Below is the surface are the roots, structures, and substance of the heart. They are our feelings, needs, desires, longings, hopes. If your heart receives the emotional and spiritual nourishment of relationship in all its meaning, then you become who and what you were made to be. By surrendering your heart's true expressions, you can live abundantly. Your thirst, your hunger will be satisfied. Your feelings, needs, longings, hope will lead to your full light. Does the full life means the storm will come? No, they will. Lightning will strike? No, they will.